trained 5 hours of jiu-jitsu for that fight. That's it. I was busy, dude, just doing a lot of other stuff, man. Trying to make my business flow, trying to make sure that my team was filled. Fight week changed, dude. They said we couldn't do anything because of COVID, so it was bad. The preparations were And with that, welcome to Early Stoppage, a show where the news of the day is usually given just enough time, but sometimes not enough. If this is your first time stopping by, we thank you. And get ready for something you won't find anywhere else. I'm John Franklin. I'm joined by, wait, don't tell me. I know. Oh, the face looks familiar. I want to say Matt, but it's not Matt. Just kidding, folks. It's the godfather of Fight Night Picks, Craig Allen. Craig, how are you?
John Franklin? Dad, I'm well. Listen, it's cold in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada this time of year. We're supposed to get 2 to 4 centimeters of snow tomorrow morning. I went out with the new BBQ and grilled up some hot dogs because I'm cheap and that's all I had in my fridge. And it was freezing. So we got that going on for ourselves up here. But listen, since you've been gone, and not the Kelly Clarkson song, but since John Franklin, my father's been gone all, 26 years of my life, we've had some busy stuff in the last couple of weeks. We've had a lot of big interviews drop. We had This Week in MMA. We had Paul Askren content. We just dropped an interview, John. I don't know if the people missed it today with the double champ himself, Patricio Pitbull. JHK had a talk with him. Man, it was absolute fireworks. I listened to it twice this morning. That's how good it was. So I'm looking forward to that. There's all sorts of great stuff going on with Fight Night Picks. And the last thing I wanted to say, I don't know if the people noticed it, but as we were coming into the show, and John doesn't know any of this, so this is breaking news. We have a new intro to this show, to Early Stoppage, and it's from an old friend of the show. This is a guy that was a former producer. He has an album out there that you can listen to on Spotify and iTunes. John Franklin, Davidson Baker, the master MC with the new intro. So you can find him at DaveBake_ on Twitter. And he's out there for all your musical needs and accompaniments. But, man, it is a banger, and we're going to be using it for the cuts and everything in this show. And moving forward, everything you're going to find on Fight Night Picks as far as music's concerned from our old pal, the guy who shaved his head as a bet, Davidson Baker.
Let me tell you something about Davidson Baker. I will say this anytime his name is uttered. We suggested to him that he shave his head like an old man if he lost a bet, and the kid paid off. He's in Cooperstown forever in my book for that. So it's great to know that he's doing some stuff with the awesome. All right, Craig, on this episode of Early Stoppage, we talk Ronda and Misha's date, the future of ODLH, and Holland's ground game. But we begin with Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. Craig, these two have had an interesting week, to say the least, between Conor stiffing Dustin's charity and the fight being rumored to be off. The fight is on, and according to Dana White, sold out in a matter of seconds. Craig, this fight is kind of pointless based on the result of the last one. Let's be honest. So do you think all the controversy this week was manufactured to sell this fight out quick, or is some of this beef and some of these problems legitimate?
Man, it's weird, right? Like, at the start of the week, the fight's going to happen. Midway through the week, we're calling people inbred hillbillies and saying that we don't owe anybody anything. And then by the end of the week, bygones are bygones, and we're selling tickets to pack up an arena. Now, I don't know about you, John. Listen, Arizona's in a different place than New Brunswick. We're still battling the pandemic. We have all of these variants. They're shutting things down over in Maine. Things are going poorly. But listen, apparently things are popping in Vegas, and you're going to be able to get a seat and watch the hottest show in town in the trilogy. And I look at this fight, and I don't care about it. I really don't. Listen, I mean, Matt talked about it in this MMA, but there's the fact that, yeah, you can sell a trilogy. Both guys have really impressive wins in each other's respective first and second fights. And now we have this third fight. But it's so soon after the second fight, it just doesn't feel like it means anything. How do you expect Conor McGregor to learn how to check a leg kick, work his wrestling, and really round out his game in a matter of months? It's just insane. So I look at the social media fluff, and yeah, was it a ploy to sell a fight? Yeah, they were probably in long-term negotiations, and by long-term, what, a month and a half tops? Like, they've been talking about this fight. They were getting into the last leg, and maybe this was to force one of the guy's hands. Maybe somebody was stalling out for a little bit more money, and this forced it. Ultimately, we get the fight. But to me, it's just a silly situation. You could have had a fight regardless, and then to throw jabs, but then for Dustin Poirier to have to go out there and apologize, it was just a weird scene all around. I really want to get your take on this, because to me, I don't give a damn about the fight. I don't care about a third fight, especially so soon after the second fight. It means absolutely nothing to me.
Well, I think that I don't think it was manufactured, because I do think that Conor probably legitimately, stiffed Poirier's charity. Where it gets weird is the thing where you got the friend that's got money, but yet he's cheap. And his answer to being cheap is to say, what do you think, I'm not good for it? What do you think I got that? I look at the car I drive. Look at this. Look at how big my house is. Yeah, but we still need the bill paid, my friend. That's all fine that you have all this other stuff, but the bill's here. Can you pay for what you ate? So, I think that if Conor said $500,000, then Conor should pay $500,000. And I think that that's a separate issue. I do think that this whole buddy Conor Dustin stuff in the second fight didn't sit well with the fans. That's not really what they're looking for. So this does add something to the third fight, whether it was intentional or not. The one thing that Conor McGregor can do very effectively is convince you that he has a shot in any fight. I mean, he made some people that stake their livelihoods towards combat sports thinking that he might win a fight with Floyd Mayweather. So, I mean, he can convince people that should otherwise know better that he has a shot in a fight. And that's for a lot of reasons. One, some of the things he's done in the past, and two, the respect that people pay to him as a in-cage or in-ring strategist. So do I think that it's impossible to think that Conor can make the adjustments necessary to win the third fight? No, I think that had Conor fought him a couple of days, these guys are close skill-wise, and Conor's a dynamic guy. So, if it was like a 7-game series like in other sports and they had to play 7, that'd be like saying, do I think Dustin's going to win all 7? Probably not. So, yeah, give him a couple months, maybe he could win one. But, yeah, I think that whether any of this stuff was manufactured, which I don't think it was, I think that it adds to the third fight, and I'm happy that it occurred.
Do you think that they needed to do any of that to sell any tickets? Like, does that affect that fight negatively or positively?
It's interesting you would say that, because sometimes, we're so close to the forest that we can't see the trees. And I think that for me, it makes the fight more interesting for me, but I don't know that the casual fan knows about all this. They might know that Conor stiffed Poirier's charity, but I don't know that that would make them either buy or not buy the fight. So yeah, I don't think it affected tickets, but I do think that as the fight draws near, it might help the pay-per-view number.
All right, John, and we move from one big pay-per-view to the next, and Kamaru Usman has a title fight coming up, but he has his sights set elsewhere, and after calling his upcoming fight with Jorge Masvidal a green panty night, he's begun to try reverse psychology on Nate Diaz, saying he wouldn't take a fight with Usman if it was offered. John, what is Kamaru Usman's play here?
I think that, the old saying, fighters cash checks and break necks. Well, Kamaru Usman's breaking plenty of necks. I think he's starting to worry about the checks that he's cashing. And I think that a check with Nate Diaz is going to be different than a check with, he's got the Masvidal money. Let me spin this around to you, because, that's what you do when you're at a loss for words. No, I'm just honestly wondering what your thoughts are on this, which is, do you think Colby Covington makes more money or Nate Diaz?
That's a tricky one. I think Diaz, he'd actually make more money. Covington's obviously the fight that we want. We want to see the rematch. It was such a competitive fight the first time. I don't really think a fight against Nate's going to be all that competitive. But listen, I mean, Nate's got a tough hill to climb in his next fight either way against Leon Edwards. But I feel like even if Nate loses that fight, and you look at it, he beat Pettis, who's now in PFL. He lost to Masvidal handily. I mean, again, oh, well, the doctor shouldn't have stopped it. It's just scar tissue that I wish you saw. And Anthony Kiedis definitely did, because he was probably in attendance. But yeah, I mean, I look at this and I think a fight with Diaz is probably pretty big. Even if he loses to Leon Edwards, they can make him, make those two guys fight. We've seen stranger decisions with the UFC and matchmaking. So yeah, I think that's a bigger fight than a Covington rematch. It's just odd to me that Covington hasn't even been booked in a fight yet.
Well, the clout chasing and the swagger jacking is something that people like to do with the Diaz brothers. And when you call out a Diaz brother, a couple of things are going to happen. They might respond to you, and it's going to get a lot of attention if they do, but they're probably not going to fight you. So you're going to get the thing that you want without having to deal with the thing that you don't want necessarily. And I'm not saying that Kamaru Usman would be afraid to fight Nate Diaz or that he would even break a sweat in that fight necessarily. But what I am saying is that he knows that calling out Nate Diaz is going to give him the attention he needs, and there's going to be no work involved because Nate's either not going to fight him, not going to fight him for a while. You know, Nate kind of sits back and picks and chooses what he wants to do, which he's earned the right to do. So I think that's the play by Usman here, is to just kind of raise attention, raise his profile, you know, take a chance that he might punk Nate Diaz out, and then maybe he'll say something. Nate Diaz has a shitty comeback and he kind of wins the social media exchange, but there's not much to it. I don't think he has Nate. He's not training for Nate Diaz.
Where does Twitter thirst trap Nick Diaz fit into all this?
If the guy's feeling heavy and doesn't want to cut weight, they call out Nick. If they're feeling light, they call out Nate, which at this point they're about the same weight.
He looked pretty good in those pictures. He looked pretty good. We'll see.
He looks pretty good in all pictures, man. It's just a matter of getting him in the cage. All right, Craig, and we move on. Let's do something that I can't even believe I'm doing, which is let's do a quick check-in. Over in one championship, flyweight GOAT Demetrius Johnson just got knocked out. Now it was to he was grounded at the time, but that's legal over there. Eddie Alvarez is protesting his loss, and Sage Northcutt is MIA professionally. Add to that the fact that Ben Askren's fighting a very high-profile fight this weekend with a billing as a former UFC fighter, despite spending time in one. How's one looking these days? And do you think some of the moves they've made over time, I keep seeing them on all my all my MMA aggregated sites. I see content involving them, but I just can't really figure out, and I've asked this question 1,000 times when it comes to one, but let's do another quick check-in. What are they doing over there, and do you like the moves they've made, and how are they looking now?
So if we go with like an Eddie Alvarez tree, Eddie Alvarez loses to Conor McGregor. He becomes a huge superstar. Eddie Alvarez has fights with Dustin Poirier, superstar. Gaethje, superstar. Goes over to one championship. What happens to him? He gets knocked out by Timofey Nastyukhin. Timofey then goes on to fight Christian Lee, which, listen, all these events are by tape delay, right? So you got to take everything with a weird grain of salt, but nobody knows what the result's going to be. So Tim Nasty fights Christian Lee. John, do you know who Christian Lee is?
Bruce Lee's grandson. No?
No. So his sister's Angela Lee
from Motley
the
Crue.
Future champ or former champ. He's got another sister, younger sister, that's a fighter. Christian's 22. He's great. He's one of those like homegrown one championship stars that they like to market. Christian Lee absolutely throttled Tim Nasty. Tim Nasty beat Eddie Alvarez. Therefore, you get that clout. For one championship, they're in a great spot where the one championship fighters are beating everybody. And that goes back to, well, yeah, you mentioned, Sage Northcutt. Now, it's unfortunate that Sage out of his fight that he was supposed to have, this week, last week, next week, due to COVID. But Sage was supposed to come back after a long time off. Eddie Alvarez had a long time off, came back, and had those illegal shots to the back of the head to Iuri Lapicus. Now, they weren't really that bad. They didn't look that bad to me. There was news that came out today with SCMP MMA on an interview with Chatri. Nick was the one that interviewed him, and they've got a couple of potential fighters that Eddie could fight in the next couple of weeks. And I think it's one on TNT 4. So they're keeping Eddie Alvarez fresh. He's going to be fighting coming up soon. But the real key is Adriano Moraes beat Demetrius Johnson. Iuri Lapicus beat Eddie Alvarez. And then we go back, all of these one championship fighters continue to win. It's good for them. And if you want a quantifiable metric, you go to one on TNT 1, and that had Demetrius Johnson Moraes as the main event. They averaged 196,000 viewers. Their second event, I watched the first one. The second one I missed. I was busy on Wednesday night doing the Askren Paul content. That one averaged 337,000 viewers. So they almost, they didn't quite double, but they almost doubled their total from the first one. I think they're doing some pretty good things with one championship. Am I watching from afar? Yes. Am I covering them? A little bit. JHK has some interviews with some one championship fighters on the channel. We got Colby Northcutt, Martin Nguyen. Unfortunately, his fight fell out. And who am I missing? Reese McLaren. He fights next weekend in the co-main event. So we're doing some one stuff with Fight Night Picks. But the weird thing is with one championship, there's not a lot of people tuning into some of this one stuff So it's kind of a weird spot for me. And it's almost a blind spot for me. It's tough to really gauge how well they are doing. But from what I've seen, it's mostly positive.
So here's what I respect about him. And I guess the first question we have to ask ourselves is MMA a one-horse race or a two-horse race? Meaning that no matter what you do, because we've seen some promotions do some things that you and I have gotten excited about in the past, and really they still kind of, leveled out to wherever they were going to level out. Like we've seen, PFL, World Series of Fighting rebrands the PFL, signs with ESPN, and we're like, man, this is going to be great because now they're on ESPN and everything comes with that. Now, again, everything that we're saying has to be taken with a grain of salt because there's a pandemic. So we don't know what would have happened had there not been a pandemic. But my point is that the one thing I like about one championship, and here's the John Franklin personal story that connects what we're talking about. So I'm switching schools. I met my new principal, right? And the one thing I respect about the guy is, and I said this to people, is I like that he takes big swings. And this is what I mean by that. He told me that, hey, as a school, we do this thing, whatever it was, doesn't matter. And he said, so what I want to do is I wanted to make sure that we were a showcase school in Arizona. Now, you could just adapt this program that he adapted, but this guy went all the way to the extent of being a showcase school for the entire state of Arizona. So what I mean by that is when I look at what Chatri's doing and what one's doing, trading for Demetrius, they're taking big swings. And you got to respect companies that take big swings because, if you take enough big swings, you knock a couple out of the park. And I think that when I see this TNT thing, I've had a couple of things in the past where we've had some ideas and like maybe they should really do that. I really think they should lean into Inside the NBA and the TNT connection and do what? Maybe let those guys do like a pre-fight. I mean, if anybody can handle it, it's like those guys have such great chemistry that no matter where you put them, they'll be okay. So I think that's where I would like to see them go next with trying to really maximize the TNT relationship.
So this is where it gets weird for me, and I'll just end on this one. So I watched the first event, like I said, I didn't watch the second one. So if they change if they change the whole layout, hopefully they didn't. But if they did, let us know in the comments. I'll have to go back and watch it. But for the first one, they kind of tried something where normally it's Mitch Chilson and Michael Chiavello, and everybody knows the voice, Michael Chiavello, Goodnight Irene. But then they added a third guy to the booth, and John, I'm assuming you missed it, but they had Rich Franklin. And Rich has been over there for a long time, and it's like, hey, this is an underutilized talent. He's now a guy kind of behind the scenes, and he's not really the face. So they had all three guys. And yeah, you had the awkward Eddie Alvarez finish. You had the weird, well, hey, Adriano Moraes just landed an illegal kick to most people, but he gets the win. And there was so much focus on that Eddie Alvarez fight that really took away from a lot. Like, Rich kind of argued with Mitch, and it was a little bit like some, backhanded compliments. It was just an odd situation. So I look at it, they tried the 3-panel thing. It was a little weird. It was like if you listen to a Blue Jays game up in Canada, you've got your classic. You got Pat Tabler. You got Tabby. You got Buck Martinez. Get up, ball. And then they throw in Dan Schulman. And it's like, well, Dan Schulman's a big deal with what? Like ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, and he's great. But then you throw him in with Buck and Tabby, and then you got 3 guys in the booth. Who knows when to speak? That's kind of what it was like watching the One Championship broadcast. Now, listen, UFC does 3 guys at a time or 3 different speakers at a time. Bellator only ever does 2, and they'll have a panel of 3, but they kept it 3 the whole time, and it was just those 3 talking, and it just got a little awkward for me. I agree. I'd like to see something like, Inside the NBA, what have you, but they got to tighten it up a little bit. And it's still early. We're only 2 events in, but to me, the first one that I watched, it didn't really, pump me up. It didn't really get me excited.
Quickly, 2 points before we move on. One, we need to establish some ground rules. Never, ever question me about news involving a Franklin. That is out of bounds. Because either 1, I know, or 2, I don't want to publicly look like I don't know Craig. He's a Franklin, for Christ's sakes. That's number 1. Number 2, Mike Goldberg to 1. Do you like it or no? If he's a free agent now.
Is this news?
I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. Didn't Bellator release him, or am I reading somebody's dirty Twitter?
Jeez, I mean, apparently I might have missed it, but I mean, listen, I've tuned in since Bellator's come back. I'm secretly, if you see my eyes kind of list over a little bit, I'm watching Bellator 257 as we film this. But yeah, for the 3 events they've been back, it's been Moro. And you're not going to find a bigger Moro Ranella fan than this guy. I mean, hey, I love Moro. Watching Pride, watching pro wrestling. He even had a program of his own on the Score, which I watched, and I thought that was awesome. And yeah, I guess Mike Goldberg's out. Yeah, I don't know if that's who they want though. Michael Chiavello does a great job, and I mean he's obviously out of Oceania. I think he probably resonates a little bit more with the fans. So I'm fine with Michael staying over there. But with Mike Goldberg, I don't know. What does he do? Does he go work for the Sharks again? Like, are we calling NHL games? I don't know. That's a weird one.
I agree. Let's move on.
All right, John, let's move on. And Aljamain Sterling, the Funkmaster, had neck surgery this week after posting an X-ray to prove it was legit. I didn't do my fact-checking on this, just like I didn't fact-check Mike Goldberg's release. So maybe if I go on Twitter, it's like, those high school pregnancy photos where they take the first one and those ones. We've all been there. It looks like the recovery time is going to be 3 months for Aljo. John, considering all that surrounds Sterling, do you think he's going to be stripped of his belt?
I saw some people calling for this online, which is where this came from. I don't. I think that they really need to listen, whatever the case may be, or whatever people think about how much he was getting his ass whipped by Petr Yan, whatever. The kid's the champ. Aljamain Sterling did not invent winning a belt and then getting surgery. Everybody wins a belt and gets surgery. That's the point. Once you win the belt, the first thing you do is start cleaning up the things that have been nagging you for years. So let the kid get the surgery. Let him get cleaned up. If it were me, I'd put Petr Yan in there with somebody else and let the guy hold the belt. I really think the UFC has to do a better job of solidifying what it is they're willing to strip somebody for. So
okay. So you've got a few fights already booked. I'm going to throw this one right back at you. You got Sandhagen Dillashaw, and that one's May 8th. You got Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt. That's May 22nd. Those are your big fights at bantamweight. Petr Yan doesn't have anything lined up. Neither does Pedro Munoz. Neither does Jose Aldo. So what's the fight if it's going to be for a belt?
If it's going to be for a belt, you're in trouble because you'd have to take one of those guys that's already booked out of their fight. Meaning you're saying you strip Aljo and Yan fights somebody for the vacant belt?
Or you throw in, again, Sandhagen's taking on Dillashaw and Font's taking on Garbrandt.
I'll say this. You'd be doing both Sterling and Yan a disservice if you have somebody other than the two of them in the next title belt. So, in the next title fight. So, yeah, I would just let Aljo wait it out and maybe give Yan the winner of one of those fights. Maybe Yan against depends on what you want to do. If you want to raise Yan's profile, which I mean I don't really know that you need to because he fought Aldo. But if Garbrandt wins, you put Yan in there with Garbrandt. If you really want to see who the best guy is to next fight Aljo, it would be the winner of Sandhagen Dillashaw versus Yan. That's where the.
Do we figure out where the other H lands in Sandhagen?
Not yet.
No, we still haven't found it. I listen. I was so against Jose Aldo losing fights and getting a title shot. And now that he beat Marlon Vera so impressively, give me Yan Aldo number 2. I need that fight. I want that fight. That's the fight I want. So make that one for the belt. And then your number 1 contender, Sandhagen, and the man himself, TJ Dillashaw. And then we go on from there. I'm sure Aljamain Sterling probably going to be out more than 3 months. So yeah, make those fights. Give me those fights.
Speaking of give me those fights, let's move on to Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate. Craig, I'm just reading the tea leaves here. But Miesha Tate unretiring and Ronda Rousey getting a tattoo commemorating her UFC success has me thinking something might be afoot. Tate was asked about a potential third fight with Rousey and said things will be very different this time. So, Craig, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. 1, do you think things will be different this time? And 2, do you think there's anything to Ronda and Miesha sort of like cosmically lining up where they're both sort of free and could fight? Do you think this would be a Triller situation? Do you think this would be a UFC situation? Does this fight happen? And if so, where?
I mean, listen, Triller acquiring Fight TV. That was big news this week. You never know. Listen. So when I was in high school, I'm going to go a weird roundabout way at this one. I know John's knowledge of Canadian, music is actually pretty good. Like, you're a big Bare Naked Ladies fan, Great Big Sea, you're a big Nickelback, and then their protege's Theory of a Dead Man's fan. And My Darkest Days, too. You remember those guys? Porn Star Dancing? That was a song on the radio for 2 seconds, with one version with Ludacris and one version with Zach Wilde. Those are crazy times. But when I was in high school, I had an English teacher that was very, very old. But I know exactly what her favorite song is because she would play it. And it was a song by Joni Mitchell, great Canadian, called I Look at Life from Both Sides Now. And to me, I think for Ronda Rousey, she's looking at life from both sides now. You're getting this tattoo commemorating your UFC time. You've been out for a while from the professional wrestling circuit. And now you're looking to get down and dirty and busy and back in the game. And what better fight to make than a big-time seller with Miesha Tate? There's no reason for Ronda Rousey to go back out there against Amanda Nunes. She'd get her, face beat in again. But a fight with Miesha Tate is, the risks aren't really there. What's going to happen? Is Miesha Tate going to submit her? And I don't think so. So for me, I think that's the least risky fight. I still think a fight against, a Holly Holm, that one's involves quite a bit of risk. And you go down through the line. Are there fights in the top 10 that Ronda Rousey could take and she might win? Yeah, there probably is. But I think Miesha Tate's probably the safest out of all of the bookings you can make. I'd like to see it. It would probably be a UFC fight, though, and not, not outside the bounds of the promotion, especially with Miesha Tate coming back. She still had fights left on her deal. So book that for what? UFC 270.
Yeah, I'm into this fight. I think that these girls, there's certain people that you're always going to want to see fight. And Ronda and Miesha are certainly in that group. Here's the big question I want to ask you because, I think the fight would be a lot closer this time around than ever before. But yeah, my question to you is this. Which camp says no?
I don't think Edmund Tarverdyan ever says no to a fight, right? So is it going to be what? Eric Nixick? Is he going to say no to it? I don't know.
Because for me, I think Ronda's camp says no because Ronda has nothing to gain and everything to lose. If she wins this fight, or if Miesha wins this fight, I think it just takes away from the other two. Although I will say this. MMA fans and MMA pundits, if you will, have always been able to sort of compartmentalize Ronda Rousey and say that she was great at a time. Then everybody caught up to her. Like, I don't know that, and the further we get away from it, the better. But I think that everybody, we did a revisionist MMA on this and check that out. But was she ahead of the curve? And I think Ronda was ahead of the curve. But you do have to respect what she did. Just because she was the first doesn't mean that what she did wasn't great. So I'd like to see the fight wherever they want to do it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Well, John, Francis Ngannou is now in the circus fight business, and now these fights come in all shapes and sizes. And the fight Francis is going after is a much more serious fight than the one we will see this weekend. That fight being against, well, really, it's a guy that just signed a 2-fight deal, so to speak, but Tyson Fury. And while on the other side of this ticket, we have John Jones, who may not be any closer to the money he wants for the Francis fight, but he's having a lot more fun with it these days. So, John, the question is, are the hurdles too high to jump over to make Ngannou Jones happen?
No, because I think the hurdles, if these are the hurdles, which is Jones's contract and a fight with Fury, they both have their limits. Meaning, I don't know that Fury is anywhere close to being in Ngannou's future. Fury's got a lot of business he needs to worry about that's not Francis Ngannou. And John Jones is going to realize at some point that it's costing him money to play this game and that the UFC has a number they're not willing to go over because of how big of a star he is. So he can make all the noise he wants. In the end, he is not a sympathetic figure. He's never tried to make him one. So if he thinks that, never tried to make himself one. So if he thinks that there's going to be anyone other than John Jones clamoring for John Jones to make more money, he's sadly and sorely mistaken. He does not have the kind of groundswell from the public that even Aljamain Sterling had when he was trying to get his title shot. So I think that he's at some point going to come back to the table, and the UFC is going to give him some sort of concession, but nothing anywhere near what he thinks he deserves.
I mean, Conor McGregor called his former and now future opponent an inbred hillbilly at the start of the week, and now he's got to fight against him. So, yeah, I mean, maybe John Jones goes from cut me, release me to pay me to I signed the contract. Let's do it. I don't think the hurdles are too high to make the fight. Listen, the weird thing is Dana White pumped up Ngannou's fight with Stipe as the winner gets John Jones. The winner gets John Jones. And then he was so quick to back off of it. I think he'd be right back on that train. You know, it was Conor Dustin 3, a lull, and then we finally get the fight after a little bit of buzz. We'll probably get the same thing for this one. I don't think it's out of the question that we get it. And that seems to me like that's a big fight where you need fans in attendance. I think that's something that we get by, like August or so.
I agree. And we move on to sparring sessions this week. Craig, let's talk about Rose Namajunas. This week she came out and said, better dead than red. Speaking about Zhang, China, communism, all that. She has a Lithuanian background. So my question is, we talk a lot about Rose in the past, some Pat Barry stuff, some just, love of the fight game stuff. We kind of dance around some of Rose's I won't say mental health because that's too strong, but like some of the things that we see in her that may not be a full commitment to the fight game or what have you. So when you hear something like this, the question for sparring sessions is, do you think, and pardon the pun, that this comment was a red flag, or do you think that we hold female fighters to a different standard? Meaning if Conor McGregor was fighting an Asian fighter, a Chinese fighter, and he said better dead than red, would we just shake it off as Conor's trying to promote a fight, but Rose has to be serious? Like, what do you make of all this? I know we don't really get, we dip our toe in stuff like this, but what do you think does this tell you anything about Rose?
I didn't know a lot about the Lithuanian Soviet Socialist Republic, and I had to do a little bit of research on that. And so they broke up in 1991. So right at the fall of, really the Soviet Union. So for Rose Namajunas, was she born in the Soviet Socialist Republic? No, but she was born shortly after, right? So it's a really weird spot for her. I mean, obviously her parents, her family, they ended up in the States and they got away from everything that was going on. And again, as my eyes drift to my left, Julius Anglickas is fighting Millard and beating the tar out of him. Julius Anglickas is also Lithuanian. That's why I bring that up. I look at this and it's weird, right? Because who made the biggest deal out of this and who ultimately was, one of the strongest proponents against what Rose Namajunas had to say, John, was actually a guy that we normally give a hard time to. And then everybody kind of rallied around on Twitter because he had a good opinion and a lot of people saw it. It was actually Brendan Schaub. Brendan Schaub kind of came out and said, what are you doing, Rose? Like, give your head a shake. And to me, that was weird because aren't Pat Barry and Brendan Schaub kind of like, isn't there a little bit of a commonality there? Like they're both in Colorado. Yeah, like they train together. So to me, it was like, hey, if Brendan Schaub actually has something to say about this and he's voicing some, concern or opposition to it, then we might tune in. And whether that's below the belt or whatever the fuck they're calling Fighter and the Kids. It's no longer a kid, but if you look it up on iTunes, it still is. Either way, I was really interested to hear what Brendan had to say, and I never thought I'd say this, but you should definitely go check out what Brendan Schaub had to say about this MMA subject, because I think he hit it on the head. You got to put yourself in Rose Namajunas' shoes. And we said this before, I think, John, to an extent, like put yourself in Khabib Nurmagomedov's shoes. Like, what if Khabib started saying negative things about where he's from and went to great lengths to distance himself? He'd probably end up in some trouble, right? So I'm not from where Rose is or where Rose or her family is from. I'm not from where Zhang Weili's from. But look at Zhang Weili. Like, is she out there touting communism as the best answer to a government? Well, not that I know of. And then I go as far as reading the articles about this, and I read an ESPN story that was written by apparently nobody. It just says ESPN, so they amalgamated an interview. And it says in the last two paragraphs, I'll read them quick. Zhang recently expressed hope that she and Namajunas could be friends after the fight. I love Weili, Namajunas said. I don't know her. I know she wants to be friends and all that stuff. It would be great to get to know her if we could, if it's possible. So then why did you say what you said about her? That doesn't seem very friendly to me. But listen, again, I'm the guy on the internet. Be nice. If you want to be treated well, you know, like they say. Maybe they say that in Canada. I don't know if they say that in the States. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just you know, I don't see the need for this. And like the last point that I have. Okay, so you throw this one out there. What does it change? Well, like what effect are you trying to have? You think, you know what? Tomorrow, boom, their politics are totally going to change overnight. Damn it. Rose Namajunas, former strawweight champ, she said that? Well, son of a bitch, we better change all of our policies. Wha-bam! We're totally different. I don't understand why it was said, but what if you're a manager, what's your take on this if your fighter just said that? Yeah, and then you double down.
If I'm a manager, what I'm telling her is you have to make a decision if you want to be, if your opinion matters more than your career. And if you want to get your opinion out there, that's fine. You can be a socially active fighter. I don't want to take that away from you. Please understand all that comes with it. And do you want that? Like, you were struggling and having mental health issues just with the idea of fighting. Do you want to get yourself embroiled in something that is beyond fighting? Is that a path you want to go down? As a manager, I would just say, is that something you want to do? Is this so important to you that, you know, it's a beat the shit cliche, but let's use it here. Is this the hill you want to die on? Is this the thing that you want to sort of derail your career? And I don't think that it would be that thing. So I can appreciate the fact that she's being honest if that's how she feels. But unless she's trying to promote the fight more thoroughly, or she's trying to get somewhere in terms of social activism, I don't know if it helps her. I'm not saying she doesn't have the right to say it. I'm just saying I don't know that it might do more harm than good for her professionally, even if she's on the right side of the issue in most people's eyes. All right, Craig, I'm going to ask the question that I love to ask. I need you to give me some props for Askren Paul. Let's do it.
John, straight up, really surprised how well received the Askren Paul video preview and prediction was from last night. Holy smokes. Didn't expect that. So thanks to the Fight Night Picks fans out there. You didn't absolutely shit on us like you did on the Tyson Jones thing. And there are a few comments, John, I don't know if you can believe this, where they were like, hey, I can't believe you guys did some serious analysis on this joke. Yeah, why would I change my brand? So when we're trying to give out props for Askren Paul, I'm going to go with the first one. It's an 8-round fight. Jake Paul's other 2 fights in boxing, they were 6-rounders. This one's 8 rounds. For Ben Askren, he's used to 3 or 5. And Ben coming in thick for this one. So if we set the over-under at 4.5 rounds, what are you thinking here?
I'll take the over because I lean Askren in this fight. And for Askren to win the fight, it's going to be a lot of holding. It's going to be a lot of, closing the distance. So I don't think that Paul's going to have the space to end the fight. And I don't think Askren has the skills to end the fight. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over too. I think I had Askren by decision if I'm tipping my hand, but that's the way I went. Knockdowns at 0.5. You going over or under?
Over. I think it's going to be Jake Paul getting knocked down. I think Ben's going to catch him with something short, like on a break or like in between punches. Ben's going to hit him with like a check hook or something like that. And then I don't think he's going to the kid's not going to be seeing stars, but I think he's going to, I tend to think that Paul is a very offensive boxer. And I think that Askren's going to catch him leaning.
I'll go with the over, and I feel like we're going to have a stumble that maybe like they score as a knockdown, like Ben gets his feet tangled up and he falls down and, it's a knockdown. So I'll go with over, and I think it could be 1, it could be 2. Fight going the distance. Now I'm going to give you some actual props. Yes is plus 175. No is minus 210. What are you thinking here?
For 100%. I would take that bet 100%.
You're taking the yes?
Yeah, I think he's going distance.
Yeah, I am too. Rematch. I set this one myself. Plus 150 being yes, minus 185 no.
Oh, that's a tough one. If I have to bet on it, not knowing the fight, I would say no, because I think that they're both trying to move on to different things.
I would agree with you.
I think Askren would want to rematch. Paul has bigger fish he's looking to fry.
Yeah, that's fair. Other YouTubers and such. The chance that Funky Ben walks out to give up the funk. Let's set yes at minus 5,000, no at plus 2,500. What are you thinking?
Yes, I think he's gonna walk out to it.
Yeah, I do too, and I think his robe. Like, what do you imagine that costs like on eBay after the fight?
Ben Askren's robe?
Yeah,
I think you could probably get it for a good price. Probably 3 figures. 3 figures.
Well, then I'm
All
in
right,
the market. How about that?
There you go. All right, Craig, let's move on to For the Gram. Volkanovski-Ortega coaching tough. The other thing that was kind of circling Volkanovski this week was his complications with COVID. At some point, I guess we got to start taking this thing seriously. Listen, I judge everything by my gym, and there are very few masks in my gym. I'm wearing one of them, but there are very few. So my guess is, which I'm not breaking news here, after July, everybody's acting like it never happened. But I would say that I like them coaching tough. I don't know if they have the personality to raise the profile of the show, but they might surprise me. What do you think of them as tough coaches?
So basically, you're going to get Volkanovski coming in there. I bet she's kind of like Uriah Faber-esque. Like, I feel like that's the vibe I'm going to get from him. He might goof around a little bit. He probably raises the profile of the fighters that are on his team. What the fuck does Brian Ortega bring into it? Yeah, bro. Let's have a good time.
You know what Brian Ortega would bring in that would be cool if he was smart?
The devil's lettuce?
If he was smart, he would, on the down low, the subtext being, he brings in every dime piece he's ever hooked up with. Like like 1 week it's Halle Berry, then it's Claudia Gadelha, then it's like every girl that like he has a connection with, they just end up on the show, and the subtext being that he's hooked up with them. Like they're all guest stars. Halle Berry for sure. And Gadelha for sure, and then a bunch of, whatever, ring girls I've never heard of.
I'm not joking here. So the interview, again, I listened to it twice this morning. Patricio Pitbull, man, this guy really wants to fight with Volkanovski, and it's not like it's never going to happen, so I'm just going to call for it anyway and raise my own personal profile. This guy really wants to fight. I think it'd be awesome if you had Patricio Pitbull and Volkanovski as coaches. I think it'd be awesome to have that fight. I think it would be a lot better than Ortega as far as TUF's concerned, but it won't happen anytime soon. That to me would be the ultimate. But when I look at this, I don't give a damn about the Ultimate Fighter. I don't like the show. I know we differ on opinion here, so that's what makes it interesting. It'd be a boring show if we were an echo chamber, but I don't like it at all. So yeah, I really couldn't care less about the show.
I'll move on to one Twitter hitter. Craig, this was an interesting week. Kevin Holland was at one time, at moments, talking about that he's going to improve his wrestling. Other moments, throwing shade at fighters who only want to wrestle. He's one of those rare fighters where he had some success. We maybe started thinking he was better than he was, but now he's reaching the point where he's jumping on a lot of opportunities, and if he doesn't start getting some wins, it might be a little problematic for him. What do you think the future holds for Kevin Holland? Do you think that he's going, Matt and I talk on the recap show about the next call, is it coming from
on what?
On the FMP recap show? It happens every once in a while. Yeah, I know. We talk about, is your next phone call coming from your coach, from the matchmaker, or from Dana? I think at this point, all Kevin Holland's calls should be coming from coaches. What do you think? Where do we stand with him?
It's got to be coming from Daniel Cormier. Wasn't that the scoop? Like, wasn't it, hey, the invitation to come to AK is there, take it? The guy needs wrestling defense. It was porous before the Brunson fight, after that fight, before Vettori, after Vettori. I mean, yeah, he had success in the first round, a little bit of the second, in both of those fights. And then after that, it was all a wash. Like, the guy doesn't have the chops to wrestle defensively. And yeah, can he get lucky sometimes, like he did against Brendan Allen when he rallied back, or Jacare when he gets taken down and bounces back up? Sure. But apart from that, yeah, it's like Swiss cheese. So to me, you got to go to wrestling school, whether that's AKA or even a bigger camp, AKA Jackson Wink, or to me, American Top Team. And I look at the things that even fighters, Mateusz Gamrot. Is he a great ground fighter? Yes. Does he have the wrestling and the ADCC chops? Yes. And then he goes to ATT and he really starts stringing things together and he beats the shit out of poor Scott Holtzman. So for me, if Kevin Holland can do something like Mateusz Gamrot did, and listen, he was a star before he lost to Kutateladze anyway. But to me, if Holland can do something like that, where I can gain a little bit from one of these camps, I think he needs to make the move. And we talked about it, before the fight and after the fight. When he went into that Brunson fight, he's been a Travis Lutter guy. He's got his black belt. There was promos going into that fight that they showed. It was either main card or prelims because they hardly even pumped up Vettori. And it was just Kevin Holland where they went, pan to Kevin Holland. And he said this and, paraphrasing. He's basically like, yeah, I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu and I didn't even go to the gym every day. Like I just worked so hard and I earned it. Problematic when you say something like that in a promo and then as the fight's going on, the commentary team are saying, hey, this guy's missing out on basic jiu-jitsu moves and basic sweeps to get out of these bad positions. So, yeah, he has got to make a move and quick.
All right, Craig, let's move on to posting to the book. I want to talk real quick about Bellator light heavyweight Grand Prix. It kicked off with Bader and Machida. Did that fight get you more interested in this Grand Prix? We've been talking about how much, this light heavyweight division might be better than UFC's, all that stuff. Where do you stand with the Bellator light heavyweights?
You're going to be watching 257? God, please say yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm watching 257 right now. Canada's Julia Budd has Lance Gibson and Lance Gibson Jr. in her corner. Jr. already won his fight tonight. But at the end of this, in the co-main and the main, you have Beaston 25-8, Corey Anderson taking in Dovletchan Yagshumaradov. And I love the fight. It's a great one. And in the main event, it's a rematch between John Franklin's favorite fighter, Phil Davis, and Vadim Nemkov. Now, Vadim's brother already got beat on the night. It's awkward because Carl Albrechtsen already has a win over Vadim. Now he has a win over his brother, Victor. Creepy vibes. But to answer the question, I'm down for this Grand Prix anyway. I love Grand Prix. And the Bader fight against Machida, Bader beat the absolute tar out of Machida and it hurt my soul. But he's up on the desk this week doing commentary. Bader is. So that's cool. I'm down for it. And I feel like everybody else, I'm most excited about Rumble and Yoel Romero. That's a great fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited about the, as excited as I ever get about Bellator. But
you got to be there for the prelims.
I do. All right, Craig, let's move on to start the conversation, then we'll do finish strong. Because there's a couple things to finish strong I want to touch on. So start the conversation this week. I want to talk about these fights that we're seeing, the Askren and Paul and all this stuff. So everyone seems to have a side hustle these days, or at least is representing one. News this week broke that Oscar De La Hoya may be in talks to fight Tyron Woodley. So I want to start the conversation this week when you're negotiating for these high-profile circus fights, is it to increase your clout? Is it like Uber, like another revenue stream for you? It's like a legit side hustle. Is it post-fighting career plans? And do you think that these things distract from the main goal? Like if Tyron Woodley's sitting around thinking about whether or not he should fight Oscar De La Hoya, does that take him off the path towards where he should be going? And the example I would use is Conor and Floyd. Conor got generational wealth by fighting Floyd Mayweather, but by all accounts, it's made him a worse mixed martial artist. So should that matter to Conor McGregor? Do you think that matters to Conor McGregor? What's really the end game for all these guys that seem to be chasing these circus fights? Is it just to say, I'm a relevant enough fighter for a guy from boxing to care enough to fight me? What's the game here?
Did it make him a worse fighter? Is that an easy excuse for him from here on out?
It depends on how you look at it.
Listen, Ben Askren going into this fight against Jake Paul, he had hip surgery in September, and he had what Tracy Lawrence would call paint me a Birmingham hip, where they take your hip out, they clean it off, they put it back in, and you're good to go. And he said he's pain-free the next day. For Ben Askren, what's his end game? Commentary? Twitch? I don't know. Like, what is it for Ben? Ben's at the end of his career. For Tyron Woodley, end of his MMA career, he can still capitalize on the fact that he was a longtime UFC champ, and he can fight for Bellator or whoever the hell else and make, a bucket of money. So for me, it's either setting yourself up well for retirement or having a slush fund where you can go out and blow it like James Harden pre-NBA. Or what is it? Was it even pre-NBA? Or was it? No, it was the start of the season. Like, that guy knows how to party. And he's probably going to win a title. So maybe everybody should do that. But yeah, to me, it's one of those ones, you're going to have a high-profile circus fight, and the goal is to make bank, and you're probably going to set yourself up well for retirement. For Woodley, what's a bigger fight? De La Hoya or, I don't know, Gegard Mousasi over with Bellator? Like, what do you think? So for me, I think it's more of a retirement thing. It's actually more of a long-term plan, even though it might look like a short-term gain. To me, it's people actually setting themselves up well financially.
Yeah, I do think there's a little bit of this in I want to be relevant enough for people to even consider me to be in this fight. Like, if Oscar De La Hoya tweets, I'm going to fight Tyron Woodley, and a bunch of his replies say who, that's not good. That's bad news for Tyron Woodley and Oscar De La Hoya for that matter. So I think the guys want to float these things out. I will say this now, and I give a lot of props to Triller for this. Now more than ever, let me take that back. Conor Floyd is really what did all this, which is people from different walks of life really, like us, being really, really interested in fights that were only dream scenarios before. Like, listen, I'm wearing the Tyson Jones shirt right now from Roots Fight. That fight got a lot more respect. Now, it turned out to be a good fight, but that fight or it turned out to be two guys that were, one guy that was in there looking to really push the action. But my point is like, these things are being taken a little bit more seriously because of what Conor and Floyd did. They both went in there, they got after it, they made a ton of money. So, but I think most guys, the odds of Tyron Woodley and Oscar De La Hoya really fighting are low, but Tyron Woodley likes to at least be in consideration. All right, 3 quick ones on Finish Strong. I'll do them. So I got my wish. Juliana Pena got her wish. It's Nunes versus Pena for the belt. Have you changed? Now that it's booked, have you changed your opinion on whether or not the fight it's a good fight to make?
So we write, produce, record, edit This Week in MMA like in one shot. So it's, hey, what do you want to have for topics? Blah, blah, blah. Here's the picks, predictions. I do up the graphics, bang, and it's out. The best part about that was as we're about to start, boom, Nunes Pena, it's for the belt. Craig, what do you think? And I said, I'm not going to talk about it on that show. I'm going to talk about it on this show because John and I have totally different opinions on this one. I hate it. I hate it. I think it's stupid. And Juliana Pena is in for a bad night.
Maybe, but if she wins, she's going to be a massive star.
Nope.
Up next, Clarissa Shields is going to make her debut in the PFL in June. In terms of Aaron Pico, what do you think give me how many years it takes for Clarissa Shields to be relevant in MMA?
Well, I mean, if Ray Lewis is tweeting about you, you're probably, in the good graces, right? Let's see. Aaron Pico's first fight, he fought Zach Freeman, 8-2. Justin Lin, 7-3. Shane Crutchton, 12-3. 18-8, 18-4, and then he lost to Corrales, 16-3. Did you see the record of who Clarissa Shields is fighting in her first fight?
No, tell me.
She's 3-6. So, I mean, hey, there's a chance she gets taken down and loses, but probably not. I've seen more people talking about Clarissa Shields than I thought I would, which is good for the PFL. Though I still get all of those friggin' promotional emails every single day about every little movement that the PFL's made. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one for me. That bad of a record to start. I get it. You want to start off on the right foot with a win, but come on.
3-6, Craig. In the words of Dickie V, that's Cupcake City, baby. Cupcake City. All right, lastly, let's talk about Invicta. Sold to Anthem Sports and Entertainment, future cards to air on Access and TV and Fight Network. It's not Fight Pass, right? I mean, that's what it was. But what do you think moving forward? Do you like this move for Invicta?
I mean, if it's on Fight Network, I can watch it up here, right? So that is good. It's disappointing, that it isn't Fight Pass because I pay for it and I can go back and watch the fights easily. Now I have to look a little bit harder. It's still good though. I mean, that's a decent place to land, right? You shoot for the moon, you landed amongst the stars. Access TV and Fight Network were stars, right? Decent.
Yeah, I just like that they found a home. I mean, and a home, not only found a home, they found a home that has a history with fights, that they're not on some kind of random thing where we're pulling guys together or they're trying to like self broadcast, or they're not on their YouTube channel or Facebook or any of that shit. They're with some guys, they're with some companies that can pull together the right people. I mean, would you be super surprised if either Access TV or Fight Network hired Mike Goldberg? I don't know if you heard, he's no longer with Bellator. So I'm just saying. What about Triller? Mike Goldberg, if there ever was a match made in heaven, it's Mike Goldberg and Triller. Because everybody that's tuning into Triller remembers when Mike Goldberg called UFC events. They probably think he still does.
Triller is an app that competes with TikTok. I doubt it.
Maybe you're right. Oh, bone to pick with TikTok. I downloaded TikTok this week. I had avoided it forever. I downloaded it because let me just get to the story quickly. I have this dream scenario because I work in Arizona at a school. My dream scenario is to learn Spanish, tell no one, and be able to pick up on all the conversations that are being had around me. So this is a joke I have at work with my coworkers. So I saw this TikTok video that was tweeted out about an Uber driver who didn't think the people in his cars didn't think he spoke the language they did, so they just were talking shit in another language. And so I was like, I gotta watch this video because this is my thing. So then I downloaded TikTok. Now not only can I not stop looking at TikTok, but secondly, I suck at liking videos. That's just not my thing. So I saw this thing where it was like, hey, here's a website you should be looking at. And it was like this website that had like this unlimited book collection in PDF form and all free. And now I can't find the site. I can't find a TikTok video. TikTok, can I at least have a history of the shit that I've watched? That's all I'm asking.
I hate it.
Fair enough. Craig, the guy that hates TikTok, can be followed at Craig Allen FMP. I can be followed at SM Cornerman. The fight has been stopped. We'll see you next week. Craig, say something positive about TikTok.
I'm sure our beat producer, Davidson Baker's on there. Check him out.
Peace.